St. Louis. hmm Came up here for the weather. As if I really need a microphone, right? I got a lot enough voice as it is. I got to not talk loud is what I got to do. That's hard for me. Ready to go? All right. Well, I want to thank you guys for attending. I promise I won't bore you, and hopefully you'll actually glean something from this. So I have a question. First question, and this is a serious one now. Has anybody here seen a live dinosaur before? A live dinosaur? The answer is yes. You're looking at one. Okay, because this marks my 40th year in the lighting industry. So I am a dinosaur in this industry for sure. So I actually started my career in Chicago, just in Schiller Park, so back in the old days. So um, my name is Mark Kaner. This is Brian Reagan. He's up here with me. We're with Tarrant Lighting. Tarrant Lighting is a lighting distributorship based in St. Louis and in Fort Worth, and we specifically deal in national accounts. What we do is a lot different than a normal lighting distributor because we are always involved in the design process as much as the logistics and delivery process. So what do? We are involved at every step from meeting with you guys. We work with you on Buddy's Pizza, and we work with a variety of general contractors. We get a lot of recommendations from GCs, from electro contractors, as well as obviously from owners that we deal with because our goal is to work as part of the team. You guys are as much as the team as the end users, the contractor in the field. We want to keep everybody happy as best that we can. That's our goal. A little bit of background about me. As I said, I've been in the lighting business for 40 years. Right out of college, I worked for General Electric in the lamp division. Worked there for a couple of years. Worked for a company called Lightalier. Anybody heard of them at all? Lighting manufacturer. Worked for them for 10 years. And for the last 30 years, I've actually been in the lighting national account arena, dealing with national chains. So I dealt with Eddie Bauer for 27 years up until they decided not to open up stores anymore. I dealt with a company called Hollywood Video. If everybody remembers back in the day when there were videos. I also work with Lifetime Fitness. My largest account is Whole Foods. So if you go to any Whole Foods store in Chicagoland, I design the lighting in that. And I got done redesigning the lighting because we did a lot of remodels recently. So every one of those projects are mine, and I do those throughout the country and even internationally. We do work in Canada, we do work in Mexico, we do stuff overseas as well. So our niche in the marketplace is retail, an emphasis on grocery, but also specialty retail. We work with Men's Warehouse, we work with Hugo Boss, we work with Tom Ford. So high-end retail, I used to do Save-A-Lot grocery stores. So everything from the bottom line up to boutique. As far as restaurants, obviously Buddy's Pizza. I deal with a company called Yardbirds, which is a very high-end chicken restaurant. I've done Buca de Beppo as far as designs for them. Steakhouses as far as Eddie Merlot. And we're currently doing a bunch of work for a company called Salata, which is a salad bar company. So again, everything from fast casual to fine dining. We also work in the senior living space. We work with V Living. We work, which is part of Hyatt. We work with Belmont Village out of Texas. I've also worked with Golden Living in the past, as well as Emeritus Senior Living. So got a variety of different experience from lighting design, but also from supply and logistics with them as well. So that's kind of our background. What I want to do, I'm going to split it up and do a bunch of different things here. First, I want to talk about lighting design. I'm going to show you a couple examples. I'm actually show you about Buddy's Pizza that I had done, so you can walk through and see what that looks like. Then I got one or two products I'm going to show you, and then just kind of open it up for questions. I'm not here as a sales guy. I'm here as to have a discussion with you guys, and that's really my goal. So I don't know where everybody is from a lighting standpoint. Who would say that on a lighting standpoint they're a 5 or above? that understand lighting and what it can impact and how to do it versus less than 5. Above 5? Less than 5? Okay, so a little bit everywhere. Okay. All right, so I want to talk about, everybody talks about green solutions, but green and lean are really one and the same. If a space is designed correctly, a couple things happen. Number one, it's the least expensive way to build it because you don't keep adding light fixtures that you don't need. Number two, um, you're also using less fixtures, so your installation labor is going to go down, your electrical process or your electrical loads are going to go down, and your maintenance headaches in the future are going to go down. It also is going to take into account, from a greener standpoint, your sustainability, also energy codes, and doing it for the least operating cost as well. So when I get involved in the design process, first thing I'm looking for is what do you want it to look like? You are all the creative people. I'm not. I'm the technocrat that can take your design and turn it into reality economically, making sure that we meet all the codes, using the latest technology without getting carried away. Spend money where you need to spend money and don't spend money where you don't need to spend money. You're not going to get credit for things people don't notice and don't see. But you don't, when I say don't see, let's look at a downlight for a second. Just a regular LED downlight. I can get you downlights anywhere from $30 to $300. Okay, what's a $30 downlight? It's one that you're going to kind of go like this because it's going to be too glaring. $300 downlight is going to be a work of art. But there's fixtures that are right around $100 that are not going to be glary, that are architectural grade, that I can get the pricing of a commercial grade for. So don't be afraid to experiment. Always look at the product because in the old days we had light bulbs, and light bulbs could easily be changed out. If you didn't like this one, we could put a different one in. We could switch different colors and all that. LEDs are permanent. If we want a 6-inch, 3,000 lumen, 3,000 Kelvin downlight, we got it. If we're not happy with it, we got to change the fixture out or parts of that fixture out. So it's an expensive mistake. So it means it's got to be done right the first time. Okay. So my thing working here? Oh, I'm not working. What happened? I got my thing there. Okay. Now, let me plug this back in. How about now? Why not? Sorry. Oh, I know what it is. I got to bring it up. Yep. Bear with me. Old age here. From beginning. All right. Where's my technical person here? He gone? Okay. I apologize. I don't know. Share on drive. Okay. Here. Okay. There we go. So, what is the value of light? An old survey that BMSD magazine, everybody knows visual merchandising display. They actually co-sponsored with a company called Hera Lighting that was doing shelf lighting. And what they noticed that basically as you light shelves and vertical surfaces and displays in retail lighting, there is a 100% increase in the purchase from products on those displays. Number one, people are staying longer. Number two, they evaluate product longer. And number three, they purchase more. If you don't light a display, you're relying on the customer to find what they're looking for versus products to jump out. Think about it as impulse buying versus destination buying. Make sense? Which is why in a grocery store, for instance, obviously Whole Foods is my biggest customer. When you look at a grocery store center aisle, right, you've got a 7-foot, 8-foot tall gondola or Logier racking. Well, everything from the floor to here is typically unsaleable unless you know that you want it. Because most lighting in a retail store like that with high shelving is it's extremely dark down there. So if you do have a situation like that, we need to know that. We need to find a better way to light those shelves so that there is light on those bottom shelves. So if you look at it and you say, okay, a third of that real estate, a third of that shelf is not getting proper lighting, therefore no impulse buying. Okay? If we can increase, if that's a third of the sales floor there, and I can increase the sales there by 20%, 10%, 50%, whatever that number is, that translates directly to bottom line because those are sales they would not have gotten before. Okay. Now that doesn't mean that we light everything the same way. A lot of times I'll talk to somebody and say, okay, close your eyes, walk me through the space, and tell me the first thing you see. Because the first thing that you see in that store tells me that that's a feature display. And that's how we're going to build when we build on lighting. Okay, so again, lighting is important. Lean standard, less energy, less light fixtures, less installation, less waste, less maintenance, higher visual impact, and lowest life cycle cost. So when we're doing design, if we do it right and we know the budget, and why do we need to know budget? Because I need to know what kinds of manufacturers to go to. Okay, if it's something that is a high-end boutique, I need to know that. If it's a high-end boutique with a champagne taste and a beer budget, I need to know that also. Because if there are products out there that look similar, perform as good as, but don't cost as much, maybe it's different mechanics. Back in the old days, we talked about track heads. Do you care if there are 2 screws on the back of the track head that are aimed up at the ceiling that you don't see? If not, if that's not an issue, I can save you a lot of money. If you want jewelry, that's something totally different. We talk about custom light fixtures. I can bring in a custom fixture here and show it to you on the table, and you will look at it and just in awe that it is jewelry, but it's going to cost as much. However, if you want a custom fixture that you're going to hang at 12 or 15 feet in the air, and people say, oh, that is really cool, and walk by and do what they're supposed to be doing, that's going to save you a lot of money. I deal with people who need to afford to and build that one instead of this one. Okay. Thank you. That's okay. It's mine. It's my fault. Okay. They have to replicate. They have to build these multiple locations, and they got to afford to be able to build them. So we're not building jewelry. We're not building museums. We're building retail spaces for customers. Okay. So we talk about lighting. There's an art of lighting, and there is the science of lighting. I can answer any question you want, except I like and I don't like, right? Because I don't have an answer. Either you do or you don't. So just remember that there's lighting to look at, there's lighting to see by. Let's talk about the art of lighting. It can be the fixture, but it can also be the space. What are we lighting? What is the characteristics of the building? High ceilings, low ceilings, soffits. Do I have a lot of natural light? Do I not have any natural light? Those are all things that I've got to take into account when I'm designing space. Also, I've got to look at it from a lighting standpoint. What happens at nighttime? What happens when there's no natural light coming in? How do I deal with that? Okay. You're going to spend a lot of money on architectural elements. We get points for that, right? Because that's why we're doing it, so that the space looks better. So we've got to accentuate that and enhance the look of that. Do we want to wall wash something and flatten textures? Do we want to graze it and enhance textures and bring out those textures? If I got a bad drywaller, I want to wall wash because I want to hide every imperfection possible. If I've got a stone wall or stucco or something going on in those wall treatments that I really want to bring out texture, I want to change the position of those light fixtures. I want to change the type of light fixture. Because if I have a light fixture with a lens on it, I am not going to see any texture. It's just like a fluorescent. If I want to see texture, what I want to do is I want to use LED with a clear lens on it, so that the bare tubes, and I'll show you some examples of that a little later, so that the bare LED is actually acting as a point source. I'm going to refer to point source and I'm going to refer to linear source. When I refer to linear, I could still talk about LEDs because we're going to only talk about LED now because all of that stuff's gone. All the stuff I learned for all those years, I got to forget now. But an LED with a frosted lens from an aesthetic standpoint and a performance standpoint, when I talk about performance, what things look like underneath it is no different than a fluorescent tube. Why? Because a fluorescent tube is a white glass. Okay? As soon as I take an LED that's got a lot of pop, even though it's a point source of LEDs, I stick a lens in front of it, it becomes a fluorescent, aesthetically. Okay? What is the client's business model? What message are they trying to send? Do I have a lot of densely packed product? Is it a restaurant? Is it a fast casual restaurant? Is it fine dining? Is it fast food? What time of day are people being in there out? grocery store, hard goods, you tell me. If I'm selling computers, I got to make sure that when people are looking at those computers, those iPods or iPads or whatever, there's no glare or flash coming off of that. So I need to be thinking about all those other activities that go on in that space as well. Who's the customer? Male, female, demographics, age. As we age, we lose 65% of the light that our eye sees is gone. And we'll show you some slides of what that really looks like. Product needs to be seen, evaluated, expected, bought. In a retail environment, clothing store, what is the most important, where is the buying decision made? Bingo. What is the worst lighted place in a retail clothing store? The fitting room, right? Because it's all about how do I look with this on. And everybody tries every which way. Well, we're going to use downlights or track heads and we're going to point them at the person as if they're on stage. No, it's not what we want to do. What you want to do is bathe the whole person in light so there's no shadows. I have light bouncing off of walls, off of mirrors, off of all surfaces. So there's no streaks, no shadows. I can see how I look. I can see color. And I can decide if I like the way I look in that mirror. Okay. Atmosphere. What kind of feel do I want the space? Feel is it's a lighting term, right? Because if I use cooler color temperatures versus warmer color temperatures, if it's bright versus dim, those all affect my attitude about that space. Is it upscale and personal? Is it fast paced? Is it casual? Is it value? Or is it perceived value? Years ago, I did something with an architect out of Ohio for Dick's Sporting Goods. And they ended up canning it because they thought it looked, even though it wasn't, they thought it looked too expensive and people were going to perceive that the product was too expensive for them to purchase. So again, we got to figure out what kind of message we want to send to people. You're also going to notice when I go through this film, that half the time I'm ahead of my slides or behind. I write this thing, I'm going to do my best to follow it. Okay, so we've got everything from high-end dining to a Krispy Kreme to a new Baskin-Robbins concept. And all of these are designs. Some of them are actually the bottom two of the ones I've done. Flow and directionality, depending upon the space. When I'm lighting a retail environment, especially if I'm in a mall, remember those were places people used to go to shop? Okay, what I'm trying to do is I'm fighting against everybody else. I'm also fighting against the general lighting. If it's an outdoor mall, if it's a strip center, I've got to get people's attention and bring them into my store. Everybody been to a Times Square in New York? How many have? Okay, you see those obnoxious windows that they have where the lights are just blaring. Okay, I got to do that tactfully. Okay, I've got to bring people's attention into the space, and then I want to move them around the space. So when I talked earlier about a feature display, that feature display is to get your attention either outside the building or as soon as you walk into the store. If I light everything and I highlight everything, I've highlighted nothing. All I did is accomplish having a very expensive general lighting system, probably two, because I probably have a general lighting system and I put a ton of track in there. When we work on buddies, if there's a track fixture on a drawing, I want to know what it's aimed at. I don't just arbitrarily put track heads 2 feet on center. I want to know what we're pointing at. I'll get drawings sometimes from architects and I'll call them and say, I'm not sure what you're aiming these at because there's nothing there to aim it at. So because I don't want to waste the customer's money. I don't want you to waste the client's money. Put it where you need to put it. Give yourself flexibility, but don't just put them in arbitrary patterns. Same thing with reflective ceiling plans and putting symmetrical circles or rectangles on plans. Sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not. We just have to understand what that space is. So if I have a feature display, that could be product on the back wall. It could be a produce table in the front of the department. It could be an end cap somewhere. It could be a graphic. That's designed for attention. When I'm lighting for that, I want to light that about 10 to 15 times brighter than everything else around it. And when I say 10 to 15 times brighter, let's say I have this is my display that I want, like this graphic. It needs to be 10 to 15 times brighter than this, adjacent on this same plane, not the lighting on a different plane. Not horizontal lighting if I'm looking at vertical. It is plane specific. And that is important to know because I've had people thinking they needed 1,000-foot candles on a display because they had 100-foot candles in the store. Well, but that 100-foot candles in the store doesn't translate to how many vertical foot candles you actually had. Okay, so remember, it is on that plane. Okay. If we're talking about flow and directionality and hospitality, is there a quick serve queue line? Are we looking to send somebody to a hostess stand? Is it a check-in at a hotel? Where are we trying to directionally move people through that space? Okay. Experiential, where is the buying decision made? Provide adequate lighting for product selection process. Does the space allow the customer to look and feel good? Make it personal. Appeal to the senses. So here is a fitting room that I did for Prada, which is a yoga clothing store owned by Columbia Sportswear. I just did this for another retailer, and the architect asked me, he goes, where could I send somebody to see this? No place. Well, how come? I go, because nobody does it. Unless I've designed it, because everybody else is doing downlights, they're doing everything. They're putting lights behind mirrors and shadows, they're putting wall sconces up. They're doing everything the traditional way. Years ago, if you walked through a shopping mall, you saw 2x2 fluorescents and track all the way around the perimeter with track lights aimed at the walls. And it didn't matter what product you were selling or what company, there was no identity. You could move A company out, put B company there tomorrow, and the lighting never changed. That's pretty sad because we're all professionals here and we should do things that do differentiate. Okay? Experiential and hospitality. Where's the time being spent? Is it adequate lighting? I'm on the road every week. Hotels, God, I hate the hotel rooms. I just hate the fact that there's no light in those rooms that I can see. I don't know why any of the hoteliers don't try to do something better, but for some reason they just don't. So am I doing it is it my bedroom? Is it a bathroom? Is it a gathering space? I want to have it bright enough for the people who are going to be in there without being obnoxious. And when I say obnoxious, that can be intensity of light. More importantly, it's glare. I was with a client 2 weeks ago, and they were talking about whenever they install LEDs, 2x2s, they have to put dimmers in because it gives them all headaches because LEDs are just too bright. Okay, it's not that LEDs are too bright. It's the fixture selection that they use. Okay, this fixture right here, as an example, has the same amount of light as a 2x2 or 2x4 with fluorescent. But I took that amount of light and I spread it across a 2-foot by 2-foot area. Now I'm spreading it across about a 6 to 8 inch wide area. All that light now is in one spot. Some of these are better than others. Some of them are just awful. We call them indirect baskets. The old days there were actually basket fixtures that bounced fluorescent off. They're not. They're direct now. So now this thing is a glare bomb. In the old days, we had lensed fluorescents, which were extremely glary. Then we went to parabolics in office settings, and people said, oh, that's nice looking. Let's put that in a retail store, which is great, except for I got 3 feet down, I had a shadow all the way around the perimeter because that's what the cutoff was. So the question is, how do you get appropriate lighting? Dimming it, yeah, it gets rid of the glare, but it also gets rid of the amount of light that you need to do your work. So now you got to add supplement. It's like, having a thermostat in your office and also having the little heater underneath your desk that you have, right? I mean, everybody's got it. So, but why dim it? Why not just use the correct fixture at the right time that doesn't give you the glare? Back in my Lightalier days, we used to say basically go like this, and what you blocked out is glare. Everything. Why do our eyes recessed into our head slightly? Because we want to block out glare. That's why it's designed that way. Why does the hat have a building? Get rid of the sun, glare from the sun. Well, if you use a fixture that's got a ton of glare, that's your problem. It's not the amount of lights, but where the light is and what type of light you're using. Other scenario of that is what people don't want. Back in the day, a good quality downlight was one that was a deep recess that I got as much light out as possible, that I had a 45-degree cutoff. So at a 45-degree angle, that light was there. So no matter how I walked through the space, I didn't have it offending my eyes. The problem with that is they tend to look a little dark on the ceiling. Some people don't want that effect. So now you've got to play with the finish on the reflector. What you don't want is a fixture that's glary, that's a glare bomb, but I don't want it to look off. We used to use black Alzac, which meant That ceiling looked like a dice when you walked in. Those black fixtures looked like they were off, but the light was coming down. I'll show you an example a little bit later what black Downlights looks like. So now what we've got to do, instead of using a clear specular finish, we're going to use a satin finish. We're going to use a platinum finish. We're going to use something that absorbs light so that when you look at the light fixture, it doesn't look off, but it's also not glary at the same time. What you don't want is flash. Flash is when you walk and you see that little reflection of glare in that fixture. That's what we're trying to avoid. We also don't want a lens on the bottom of it that's just blaring like the real inexpensive downlights also. Okay. The science of lighting. So here we go. It's foot candles. It's light, how much light, and where it is. Okay. Identify the demographics of the customer. Age, primarily. Identify feature displays, which is going to highlight at least 5 to 10 times, sometimes as much as 15 times the light surrounding it. Target general lighting based on a variety of factors. What's the size of the product that they're looking at? Is it hanging vertically? Is it laying horizontally? Do they want to take it out and look at it? Is there something you want to take and read a label to? Those are all things we need to be able to read a tag. We need to be able to read, the back of a food can that talks about the nutritional values. So that's all part of the process we got to be thinking about. We got to be able to read a menu if we're in a restaurant. Okay. Pay attention to perimeter of store. We talked about that earlier as far as having that shadow on the wall. So here's the thing. If you want a space to appeal more intimate and bring in a large space and make it smaller, you darken the walls and you darken the ceiling. You don't put vertical illumination in there. You use spots of light, pools of light. If I want a small space to appear larger, I light those vertical surfaces. I make sure the ceiling has some light on it. So now I've taken that space and made it appear to be larger than what it is. Two opposing positions, two different ways of lighting it. Okay. Avoid glare. I cannot emphasize that enough. I can't tell you, don't take a track fixture from here and aim it all the way over. How many times you walk through a store and you got to kind of go like this as you're walking because the glare is just terrible from a track head? You never want to put a track or an adjustable fixture any farther than 4 feet away horizontally from an object. So if you're putting rows of track for some reason, that track should never be any more than 8 feet apart, because that means I'm never more than 4 feet horizontally from that display. The steeper the angle those adjustable fixtures are, the better. When you're using adjustable fixtures, so Safeway grocery stores, they had an old prototype that they were using adjustable downlights up at a 15-foot ceiling with no general lighting. And I mean, the product popped with metal halide. Problem was when they moved that display, nobody bothered to adjust the light fixtures, right? So now I got a nice hot spot on the floor right over here, and my berry table is over here, and nobody's lighting it. For years, and I haven't figured out a way to do this, how to make light fixtures automatically move when you move product or you move displays. But every retailer there's only one retailer in the entire country that I know of, maybe the world, that adjusts track heads as they move product around. Anybody know who that is? Who? No. Crate and Barrel. The only retailer I know that, you know why? Because they have somebody that's their job. That is their only job, is to do that. Nobody else does it. I was with a JGA up in Detroit, and I asked that same question, and one of the architects goes, well, we do. I go, well, the only one is Crate and Barrel. She goes, that's who I work for. And that's exactly right, because they're the only ones, because that's somebody's job, and they get paid to do that. Clerks don't do it. Managers don't do it. Department heads don't do it. It just doesn't happen. So think about when you're using adjustable fixtures, number one, how many times you walked in, the contractor's done it, every one of the track heads are aimed straight down. Okay, happens all the time. How is it going to be maintained, not only from a maintenance standpoint, but from a display standpoint? Okay, determine the style of fixtures, the placement of fixtures, run the photometrics, see if it works. What do photometrics look like? So this, I'll show it to you afterwards because I already screwed this thing up enough. I'll show you when I'm done with this presentation. Otherwise, I don't know how to go back again. Okay. Placement of fixtures, run your photometrics. If it doesn't work, rerun it. Keep rerunning it till you get it right. Photometrics are not going to be 100% correct, but they're going to be about 95% correct. So we're going to be able to get 95% of the way there before your client installs one light fixture. That's a huge benefit because we'll know what it's going to look like. Okay? Emergency and exit lighting. Years ago, I had an architect called those things emergencies, exits, architectural zips, just like thermostats and switches on walls. Things she didn't want to see. And that's what, let's put it this way. If I gave you the option, if you don't have to install emergency lights and exit signs, would you take me up on that? Absolutely, because they're ugly, right? But we have to. And with LED, in the old days, we could add a fluorescent emergency pack for $50. It was easy, it was cheap, it did a great job. To do that in LED, it's about $200 now. So the fixture is $50. So it costs you 4 times more to put an emergency light into an integral fixture. So it's a way to make it go away, but it's an expensive way to make it go away. So how do we place them? Somebody asked me one time, how many emergency lights do you use? I said, you start with the numbers that are on the plan and you stop when the inspector says okay. Because they're the ones making the decision, not us. Okay? Various codes, if we're dealing in California, if we're dealing in any other state that has energy codes that we need to be aware of. And the budget. What brands of fixtures, what types of fixtures am I going to go to? The other thing to be thinking about is a value add to your clients. If they go into an existing space, depending upon that space and what they're doing, they may be able to qualify for energy rebates from those local utilities. Has anybody utilized that yet at all or done some of that? It's something that maybe we can work with you on and help you. If we can offset 25 to 50% of the cost of the material, that's just a win. It's something else that you brought to the party for your client. Okay. Aging consumers, 25 to 91 years old. That is the way that people perceive color. So if you want a very warm environment and you're dealing in a senior living facility, you want something to be about 3,000 degree Kelvin or a little warmer than that, you may not want to use 3,000 degree Kelvin. The problem is you got a lot of different people you're trying to please, right? You're trying to please the son and the daughter who are putting mom in the home. They're at 25 to 47. You want to show them something that's warm, that's very homey looking. But that 70 or 80-year-old person looks at it like a bug light or high pressure sodium, right? You got to be cognizant. So 3,500K to them, their perception is 3,000K. So again, color's different. And obviously color's going to depend on what other finishes are in the space as well. Eye problems. What happens when you're dealing, especially with seniors? This is what obviously normal vision versus cataract versus retinopathy, glaucoma. This is what you perceive when you're seeing things. You guys do some senior living? Okay. If you ever watch elderly people, they're always walking like this, right? Because they're so afraid of falling. The most important thing, and what we're trying to do is give them an environment that looks like their home. So we're putting downlights down a corridor. Well, the problem with that, and maybe we'll supplement that with some wall sconces. The old days they put 2x2s. The critical area for that is the floor and the wall where they meet, or steps. Because if I can't get light down there, they're not going to see it. And especially depending if they have glaucoma or something like that, their peripheral vision is shrunk a lot more. The other thing is they're very sensitive to glare, and I need my vertical surfaces very bright so that they can identify where they are. So I want to have my vertical surfaces bright, my hallways. I don't want pools of light, because if I have pools of light that look really cool and great, from an elderly person, it doesn't feel safe because they're seeing all this darkness on the side. So how do you achieve that? You got to go with a fixture that gets you high light levels, high up on the wall, without brightness, without surface brightness. And that's not an easy task to do. But those are things we need to think about, and we'll talk about different solutions. For everything has a solution. Every problem has a solution. Okay? Ceilings are going to determine a lot of things, right? Do I have an open ceiling? Do I have a drywall ceiling? Do I have a lay-in ceiling? What have I got to work with? I used to hate doing churches because churches were designed for everything except to put lights in them, right? Because especially the older ones, I don't know what they were thinking. You can't get to them. There's no place to put it. So what's the shape of the space? The ceiling, what's the height of the ceiling, and what's the ceiling materials? Types of luminaires. A lot has changed. from a typical recessed downlight, now you're going to start seeing a lot of fixtures like this. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to take a break from our presentation here for a second. This is a new recessed downlight. This one is available in a 6-inch or 12-inch. I want to show you something. There's a variety of different manufacturers that are out there. Some of them are outrageously expensive. Some are not. Some are very competitively priced. This particular fixture was designed to be very competitive. How? It was designed as a strip light with a housing that changes the ceiling plane. So now I've got a recessed fixture at a fraction of the cost. Normally, you're going to see this type of fixture from manufacturers out of Italy that are Igosini, USAI, very high end. Now, what I want to show you, this fixture is right around 2,000 lumens, so a little bit more than a 150-watt light bulb, theoretically. Look at the amount of light I'm getting out of that fixture. So if I wanted to use this as a wall washer even, as a downlight, as you can see, depending upon what it does there, does anybody see any glare? See any glare? How about now? Now? Now. Okay. We talked about how do you have a fixture and get a lot of light on it without glare. What about back there? You even can tell it's even on, really. Okay. So so this is one way to do it with a louver. The other thing, look at the carpet. This does not have a clear lens. This has a clear lens, not a frosted lens. Who knows how to turn the lights up for a minute in this room? Anybody know how to work the dimmer? Okay. Oh, they're set. Okay. All right. Look at the carpet over here. Look at the carpet here. Obviously, it's brighter, but do you see the texture? Turn the knobs, Brian. One of the knobs. Right, yeah. Okay, turn it all the way up. The other direction. Okay. Look at the carpet. You see the difference? Lens versus clear. Texture. If this was real wood, you would actually see the veining that's actually in there versus not seeing it. Okay? Another way to get rid of that glare, you can leave it back down again. All right, so this is the same fixture. This version of it is available up to 8 feet. It's the same process, it's the same basic design as the last one, which is a strip fixture. But now I can surface mount it, I can suspend it, or I can recess it as a 4-foot unit. Recess over here. I can put a decorative housing on it, any color you want, and make it look like a fixture twice the cost of it for a fraction of the price. If I want to get rid of more glare, I'm going to just hand do this rather than actually put it in. So this is not ideal. See the difference? Black versus the white. Any glare? As long as it wasn't a projector, I'm okay. Okay. So again, no glare. How much light am I getting out of that fixture? Sorry about that. A lot of light. This is the same amount of light as a 2x4 fluorescent. It's over 5,000 lumens. Sorry about that. Okay, take that. I just wanted nobody to go to sleep on me there. Okay. Okay. So, do we want to see the fixture? Do we not want to see the fixture? Okay. Glare control, I can make, so this fixture right here can look like this or can look like that, same fixture. I'll show you some different examples. Okay. So what is the difference? What is our advantage? Number one, we're brand agnostic. We represent virtually every lighting manufacturer out there. Whenever a rep comes in, they're going to come in, they're going to show you brand X, and they're going to tell you how great theirs is and how terrible brand Y is. Brian Y is going to come and he's going to tell you how full of it the last guy was and tell you the opposite story. Okay? We're the people that can come in and bring in 3 or 4 different brands and let you make the decision, tell you the positives, minuses, pluses, and costs. And you make the decision. Okay? Design up front versus VE. If we do it right, we hit the budget ahead of time. I've got a job right now with a parking garage in Nashville, and they're complaining it's too dark and people don't feel safe in there. So I look at the original design of the fixture and what they had. They took some meter readings. Looks good on paper. Well, but they made a substitution. The foot candle levels are the same. The problem is the first fixture had a lens on it, a round lens that threw light up on the ceiling, and you saw the fixture, for good or for bad. The one that they went with, we talked about not having that dark ceiling. They went with one that was all down. So now, even though they had the light here, it didn't look safe because the vertical surfaces in the ceiling were dark. So it looked like a cave and people didn't feel safe. And now it's an argument between the retailer, the engineer, and the contractor who approved the VE. If just because you're getting the same light level doesn't mean you're getting the same effect. Okay? And if we do it right ahead of time, we're keeping track of budget, we're keeping track of wattage, we're doing all that in the design process. Lighting controls is a complete system. We have the ability now with LED, all fixtures typically are dimmable out of the box. You don't have to pay extra for it. Do we take advantage of that or do we not take advantage of that? And if we do, how do we do it? How expensive is it? You don't need expensive dimming systems anymore. In the old days, you went with a Marlin system. If you were in the restaurant business and everywhere else, you use Lutron. There's 100 different companies out there. Stay away from most of them. But there are 3 or 4 that are really good that offer wireless solutions now that are really inexpensive, do the same thing, control them. You can set up presets on an iPad or an iPhone or any kind of smartphone and lock it down, and then you just push buttons to get to where you want to be, along with fade rates. Okay? And some of it you have to have. Unfortunately, the government's making us do it because of various codes. How usable is it to the client? How easy is it for the people in a retail store or a restaurant that has constant turnover, are they to be able to use the system? Can they easily know? How many times you ever go to a restaurant and you see a bank of dimmers and you used to see with a grease pen line on it where the slider was supposed to be? Okay? We can make that a lot easier now. Okay? Custom lighting, we talked earlier. Jewelry versus something that looks pretty good 12 to 15 feet up in the air. Okay, so successful lighting design. It effectively provides the right amount of light in the appropriate areas. We're not lighting aircraft hangars. Okay? Uses the optimum sources for a given task. We're not overlighting. We're not underlighting. We create a unique retail experience. I don't want, shame on me if anybody goes in the store and says, I can tell who designed this. In the old days, like I said, 2x2s in the store and in the field and then track around the perimeter. I mean, we can do a lot better than that now. Provide minimal imprint on the space. We're not in the lighting showroom business. So let's get rid of some of the light fixtures. If we don't need them, don't put them in there. Let's clean the space up a little bit. Okay? Easy to maintain and provide the best possible life cycle cost. Life cycle cost is operating, maintenance, initial cost. Okay. The other thing, so kind of new, okay, so this was an old store with miles and miles of track. Here's a store where the ceiling is totally clean, where you don't even notice it. But yet the product still pops out. Okay? Back in the old days with restaurants, right? How many times, even some of them now, where they put, what's the one I'm thinking of out of Ohio? Bob Evans, where they put these light bulbs, they put the light bulbs in there to come down from the ceiling about 3 inches, right? Versus something that looks clean and you've accentuated the space. Okay? There are LEDs, they're everywhere. They are not all the same. Anything that sounds wild to you, don't believe it. Okay? Anybody that tells you you're going to retire, depending upon how old you are or how young you are, before these things burn out, is full of it. They're going to go out. We're seeing it now with first generation LEDs. They're yellowing over time. They do color shift. It's not the perfect light source. And the people who were selling that nonsense, shame on them, because it's not. And you're going to have driver failures. Now, the good thing about it is a 5-year warranty. So for the first 5 years, there's no maintenance cost. But at some point, they're going to change them out. It's not a once in a lifetime type of thing. And over time, they do tend to either turn blue or turn yellow, depending upon how they've done it. It's just the nature of the beast. Okay. The question is that manufacturer going to be around 5 years from now to be able to honor that warranty? That's where we step in. So I'll be true honest. I had a company that was around for 40 years on these things. We were selling vapor tanks, which is basically a waterproof type of thing. You put a cooler in a restaurant or walk-in cooler, something like that, or where you got spray going out of water. Company said, "Don't worry, our products are great. We use Phillips boards and we use Phillips drivers. So even if something would happen at work, no problem." Well, that company went bankrupt. And the hassle that I have to go through to get replacement parts from Phillips isn't worth it to me. So it's easier for me to take a $150 fixture and just ship it to my customer at no charge than a new one and just write it off than it is for me to try to get them parts and pieces that I'll never get because Phillips says, "Well, we didn't sell them to you. We sold them to this guy. He's the guy that's got to get it." Well, he's out of business. And then try to go through that whole rigmarole. It's like, calling, Sprint and you got to follow it yourself. Okay. So they're not all the same. The other thing to be careful about is lumens. Everybody know what lumens are? The amount of light? Well, the problem with lighting fixture manufacturers is there's something called, they used to call it perceived lumens. Everybody know what perceived lumens are? I'm not surprised because it doesn't exist. There's no such thing as perceived lumens. But when LEDs first came out and they weren't bright enough, we used to call them perceived lumens because we wanted you to believe that they were really as bright. That, don't believe your lying eyes, right? We want you to believe that even though it's only saying that it's 1,500 lumens, we want you to believe that it's 3,000 lumens. Okay, nonsense. Now what you see is chip lumens, or if they just say lumens, don't believe it. What you always want to look at is delivered lumens. True story. Juno Lighting. Everybody heard of Juno Lighting? It's been around for a long time. Make downlights. Good company. I look at their cut sheet, and it implies that the fixture is a 3,000 lumen downlight. I look deeper in the cut sheet, and it says something about 2,500 lumens. I go to do a photometric layout, and that photometric file says it's 2,100 lumens. So I talked to the guy at Juno. I said, "I don't get this. Wait, you're telling people this is a 3,000 lumen downlight, but it's really only 2,100. And his answer to me was, "Well, Cooper does the same thing." Seriously, that was his answer back. As if that means it's, well, when you get to big business, I guess two wrongs do make a right. So when both of you deceive the client, then it's okay. If only one of you deceive the client, it's not okay. I mean, it's insane. So delivered lumens are actually how much light you're getting out of the light fixture. Everything else behind that means nothing. This fixture that I just showed you in the white louver, 95% efficient. 95% of the light from those chips come out. In a lens fixture, you lose anywhere from 15 to 40% of the light. Why? Because I have to have it opaque enough or translucent, not so translucent that I see the diodes. How close is that lens to the fixture? Because the closer the lens is to the diodes, the cheaper it is for me to manufacture. But I'm going to see diodes, so I got to go with something that's not as transmissive. Well, if it's not as transmissive, I don't get as much light on it, or I'm going to see dots. One versus the other. It's just something you got to navigate the wild ride here. Okay, delivering unique solutions. So one of the things we did here, this right here, goes all the way around the store and does this kind of a pattern. That's a $50 strip fixture. And we just changed the way we installed it. That's a back of house strip we would use. And we just found a different way to do it, so we created some atmosphere with it. Okay? Outside as well as inside. We're looking at the total picture of that space. Okay? Again, maximize the impact and minimize the costs. Okay. Any questions? Anybody still awake? Okay. Let me show you something on a design here. Okay. All right. So this is actually Buddy's Pizza. So when I do a design, what you're going to see is a photometric analysis, which looks like this. Okay, so I can tell those are foot candle values. I don't do empty spaces. Your project isn't an empty space, right? People are going to be in there, tables are going to be in there, product is going to be in there. So what does it look like? So I build it all in 3D. That's what takes a lot of time. That takes most of the time. The other thing is every time I make a change, unfortunately, it takes me about 45 minutes for it to calculate. So if it's not right, I got to move one fixture. I move the fixture. I got to wait another 45 minutes for it to calculate again. Okay. But now I can see on a scale of 1 to 100, 100 foot, those are foot candles, where my light is. Tops of tables, see the walls where I'm illuminating walls, if I'm illuminating artwork or menus or whatever. I know now exactly what I'm lighting and where it is. You want to look at back of house? I can look at back of house. So this is something I can do, and we don't charge for the service. It's just part of our value add. The other thing that you're going to notice when we're doing our designs is this right here. Come on. Okay. There. What am I looking at? My watts per square foot. I'm going to be able to tell you exactly how much wattage is in that space. I'm going to get you a complete fixture schedule with the wattage of the fixture, so you're going to know if we can pass Title 24 in California or not. Because all that's important up front. Nothing worse than going your whole design, sending it to the engineer, and the engineer says, you don't meet Title 24, you got to get rid of 50% of the lights in your space. Uh-oh, what do we do now?
Can you import 3D models like you work in 3D?
No. The reason is I can import it, but unless it has all the reflectances already built into it, I got to still go into it and put all reflectances. It's probably easier for me to just rebuild it. Because when we put anything in there, a shelf, a table, I've got to put a reflectance in there of what it's going to look like. Is it 50% reflectance, 20%? Because again, if I have all those numbers wrong, garbage in, garbage out. So the more information I have up front, the better and the more accurate this is going to be. Anybody have any questions? How much time we got left? Right on the money. I want to thank you all. I hope that this was beneficial for you. And again, you've got our cards. If you ever need anything, call us. That's what we're here for. Thank you. Appreciate it.